Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our YouTube Live today. The three foundations of capital preservation for your EB-5 investment. Most investors might be chasing the ROI for EB-5, but your priority is not to lose your money in the first place that you paid. So you need that payback as a capital investor. That should be your priority. The entire goal of an investor under the EB-5 US Green Card program is not to have the green card at a cost of $900,000 in investment, government fees, admin, and legal fees, but rather maybe just $70,000 to $120,000 in terms of admin fees, legal fees, government fees, and so forth as their net cost plus the opportunity cost of the $800,000 that they've invested. Right? Because if you don't get your money back after whether it's 4, 5, 6, or 7 years, your costs would be closer to $900,000. And that's a very expensive green card, unless you want to do the donation option of $1 million, the gold card. That's the exact truth. And we have no special effects, editing, or censorship in this video. We never do. Maybe you call us cheap, but all we focus on is the exposed truth for all of our investors out there who are considering obtaining a green card for themselves, their families, maybe for their children who are studying in the US, and it's literally not possible anymore to get a green card after studying. And of course, all this can be done in 2 years with the EB-5 program under the reserve visa allocation programs, right? Okay, folks, how rude of me. I didn't introduce myself. Quick introduction. My name is Reza. Nice to meet you. Founder of Ingwe, your solution provider for global investments around the world. Investments that give something back to you. Whether it's ROI, a green card, a new passport, a lifetime long-term like residency, or maybe a tax residency. Whether it's for yourself, security for your family, future generations, or just to protect your money from going into the government's hands. We're here to support you throughout the whole process. Facts you should know about us, quick ones. Operating since 2018. My team speaks over 7 languages. We've helped clients from over 55 different countries. So in every continent around the world, we've had clients that we've helped out. I've personally held residencies and invested in 7 different jurisdictions around the world: Cyprus, Dubai, Turkey, Vancouver, Toronto, Miami, Panama, you name it, Germany. We don't sell, but we educate you. So you're in the decision-making role for your own money. We just give you the information. That's it. We're insured and we hold client trust accounts in our North banking institutions. But last but not least, we don't leave you hanging. This means we support you through the entire process until the actual finish line. And I mean it. Let's jump into it, folks. EB-5. Of course, for this video, we're assuming your source of funds for your documentation, where you're paying the regional center admin fee and the $800,000 capital investment fee, are solid. Because if they're not, you shouldn't even be watching this video. Yeah, I'm talking to you. We're at advanced stages in this video, which depends on you having no issues with your I-526E filing with the USCIS for your EB-5. But now in this video, we're focusing on capital preservation as an investor. We will be covering the key capital preservation foundations for the EB-5 program. Okay, so we're way past source of funds now. If you're an EB-5 newbie, let's roll back to some of our other videos we have on our YouTube channel. First, talking about the key success factors in applying for EB-5 and how that works. So go to those videos. This is an advanced video, okay? Okay, for our live today, you need to understand that the capital preservation techniques are mainly for EB-5 capital investors, okay? But there's 3 that really stand out, okay? So that means there's a lot of them out there. You know, there's probably you could write a whole book, probably 500 pages of what you should look out for. But there's 3 that stand out. So if you need to really keep 3 in your mind, these are the 3 that we're talking about here. There are a few secrets out there that the regional centers don't share with you, the EB-5 regional centers. You know, the same ones you're shopping around and you're talking to them and they seem so nice. but we're going to expose that today. Some of these points you may already know about or heard about, but I'm sure you haven't considered all three of these core capital preservation factors for EB-5 today that we're covering. Key factor number one, this is the first of three, the capital stack. Who gets paid first, right? Most of you already know this, and it's common knowledge. That's the first thing many people ask. So who has the senior debt position in this, the whole financing loan situation with the project you're investing in the US for your EB-5 green card? If the project has a mortgage from the bank, then they're in first position to be paid, the bank. If the EB-5 lenders are in the first position as senior lenders, then instead of the bank being repaid first, EB-5 investors are repaid, then the bank. There are a lot of types of capital stack regional center projects out there for EB-5. It doesn't mean you can't invest in one that does not have EB-5 investors in first position as lenders, but you should just understand how capital stacks work. Keep in mind that there are not a lot of projects out there where EB-5 lenders are first position. They do exist, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the only factor to consider in an EB-5 as an investor or what project you're planning to apply. If you're in first position as an EB-5 capital investor, then you should still review who else is under the stack so you can understand the entire debt structure and the ratio of the project. The reality of EB-5 projects is that they're full of debt, okay? No matter how you calculate it. That's how they run. That's why they even exist. That's why the whole EB-5 program exists. Even if you see a developer or regional center with skin in the game, with equity or capital on their own, showing on the capital stack, it's usually borrowed from somewhere else as well. So don't worry about that. That's just the nature of the game. If you want to do EB-5, you got to understand that. And then it's the EB-5, the next level in the stack is the mezzanine or equity. If you're in second or third position in the capital stack, then there are inherent risks you should be aware of. This is quite normal. Most EB-5 projects, you'll be second or third position, although there are some where you're in first position. The risk, if the project is worth $100 million, let's say, but only sells 70 million, the bank, floor one, meaning the senior, takes their 60 million, and the floor second are left fighting for the scraps. Most sponsors won't tell you that that you're a subordinate to the bank loan. Look at projects where the regional center has consistently sold all available EB-5 allocations, and they're usually oversubscribed. This is where the track record of the regional center and the projects they're promoting and the developers is very critical, meaning they've repaid back all their previous creditors, especially for EB-5, and they have been on time paying their interest, if any. Have they had insolvency cases previously for any previous projects? You should know that. We have already posted a video on what public information you should access or search for before investing in an EB-5 project to find all the little dirty secrets of the developers, the regional centers, and so forth, if they exist, okay? It's not a perfect investment. It's not supposed to be, but you should be aware. The second factor in this, the three foundations, we're talking the second factor now for EB-5, the redeployment secret. Your money must stay in the US economy until your conditional residency or green card is done. This is common sense. Everyone knows this for EB-5, but there's a problem that many investors faced previously when investing in EB-5 projects pre-2022, and I'll explain why 2022. The problem, the EB-5 project is finished in 4 years, let's say. But USCIS backlogs mean you don't have your green card for another 8 years. So total 8 years. So it means another 4 years. The challenge is the regional center takes your money out of the safe hotel or whatever project, puts it into a new project, maybe a risky project, without asking you. They call it redeployment. I call it an involuntary second bet. So that's like winning a big on the lottery, super lotto, and then going to the casino with all that money, putting it all on one number on the roulette table. What are the chances of you coming out alive with your money? Very unlikely. What's the solution to all this? How do you mitigate this risk? Only invest in reserved allocations which don't have backlogs, meaning targeted employment areas, TEA projects, rural or infrastructure projects. Right now, under EB-5, only TEA and rural projects are available. No infrastructure projects have been launched. EB-5 investors who applied for pre-2022 EB-5s they didn't have the reserve allocation option. This is before the Reform and Integrity Act for the EB-5 was applied, the RIA. And that changed the landscape. That's where you had reserve visa allocation. That's where you can actually get processing done faster. So previously, whoever applied back in 2018, 19, 20, 2015, they were all at very high risk with the backlog or retrogression, as they call it in the EB-5 space, affecting their capital being redeployed because they don't even have visa allocations yet to be processed. The good news for investors today, when you're watching this live, you can avoid this risk by applying for projects which don't have this backlog, depending on your nationality. Of course, Indians, Chinese, Vietnamese are all affected by this backlog and need to invest in the reserve visa allocation projects like the targeted employment and rural that I mentioned for EB-5. But other nationalities are not confined to this because there's no retrogression or backlog for their nationality under the EB-5 program because there's less people applying from the country for the US EB-5 program. So they have all the options open. So you got to look at the redeployment clauses in the EB-5 investment. And also, if you're from these backlogged nationalities who are applying for green card programs, you need to go reserve visa allocation. Everyone knows that. You got to know that. But keep in mind, redeployment. Demand to see the redeployment policy in the limited partnership agreement before you sign. If you're in a reserved allocation designated project, this is not going to be your main concern because you'll get your green card before the project is successful and stabilizes and repays you, right? What's the third factor? Okay, this whole foundation thing. So we talked about the first one, the capital stack. Everyone knows that, right? The second one, redeployment. Not everyone knows that, okay? I'm educating you here. I'm empowering you here, folks. What's the third factor, foundation? Getting your money back as a capital investor in the EB-5. Okay, this is for serious investors that care about how do I get my capital repayment back. I've got my conditional green card, or maybe even the conditions of the green card done. We've created all the jobs. Refer back to my video where I talk about the 3 successful factors for an application. That's different. How do you get your money back? Okay. And to understand that properly, you first have to understand the concept most people overlook, the difference between an escrow release trigger and an exit or repayment event. Did I lose you yet? No, that wasn't the intention. These are not the same thing, and confusing them is what most people do, and investors are not aware. EB-5 investment capital must be at risk, so repayment is never guaranteed. This is the regulations in the USCIS, the U.S. Immigration Department, right? So in EB-5, your capital is not treated like a protected bank deposit or guaranteed income product. If any regional center agency is giving you that pitch, they're scamming you. That's not even allowed, and it's just a pitch to get you to sign. Wake up. To qualify for immigration purposes, your funds generally must be deployed into real business activity, either as an equity investment structure or loan-based structure. Most clients do the capital loan-based structure, and the capital must be exposed to normal business risks. This is why EB-5 offerings usually talk about target investment terms, often several years. So it could be 4 + 1 + 1, 3 + 1 + 1. But you got to remember, all those plus ones, they'll be utilized. Reality is you'll get your money back, if you're lucky, 5 to 6 years. Worst case, 7 years. Best case, 3.5, 4 years, if the project is already underway. An exit strategy such as sale of assets, refinancing, repayment of loans, or another capital event, or stabilization is what usually is the trigger or milestones, or what has to happen before you as an EB-5 investor get your money back from the project, the regional center. Instead of promising a guaranteed return or guaranteed repayment date, which they cannot. They can't even use the word guaranteed. It's not allowed by the USCIS, right, for EB-5. So they have to use terminology like exit strategy, sale of assets, refinancing, stabilization of cash flow, repayment of loans, and other things. A key point that industry guidance emphasizes is that if the money the EB-5 investment. Simply sits in a bank account or an escrow account for too long, especially during the period when the investor is expected to keep capital invested in the project, in the designated EB-5 project in the US. It may create immigration risk because the USCIS, the government, will say, well, it's not at risk. So the first takeaway is EB-5 repayment is not automatic. It's not guaranteed. Repayment depends on the business performance, the project performance, document structure, and the project exit strategy. What release actually means, the word release in EB-5, the escrow releases trigger. Okay, most regional center EB-5 offerings use an escrow account. An escrow account is a third-party account where a neutral escrow agent holds investor funds until specified conditions are met. It's very international. It's not just the US. You could probably open escrow trust accounts all around the world with different legal structures. When people say release on filing for EB-5 or release on approval, they're talking about the escrow release trigger. In other words, when does your money leave the escrow that you've invested? So you've sent that money to the regional center, $800,000. It sits in escrow. So when is it usable by the project? When is it released? That release trigger is one of the most important risk points in EB-5 underwriting because it determines how early your capital that you've invested, $800,000, becomes exposed to the project risk and how realistic a refund is if something goes wrong. Here are three common structures. Release on filing for the regional center when they take your money into their escrow, the $800,000. Folks, have I lost you there? Hopefully not. Funds are released from escrow when the investor's I-526E filing, the immigration petition by regional center investors, that's what it's called, is filed and a receipt is issued by the USCIS, depending on what the documents are required, right? The second version is release on approval. Funds remain in escrow until the investor's I-526 is approved or until specifically an approval milestone. So in the first situation, it's on filing. So usually you get an acknowledgement that they've received it, the USCIS, your I-526 filing. In the second, it's maybe you get it approved, but that takes long. So the second release on approval of I-526, that could take a year, year and a half. Hybrid version would be a petition is released on filing and a portion is held until approval or another milestone. This is commonly positioned as a compromise between project financing needs and investor protection. But to be very honest with you, 90% of regional centers release your funds on filing. So as soon as an acknowledgement from the U.S. Immigration Department, USCIS, is issued, the regional center releases the funds from the escrow to the project. Okay? Release on filing. Once you file it, you provide evidence that it's been filed, the receipt from USCIS, the escrow releases your capital, typically into a new commercial enterprise. That's the investment entity. So we call it NCE. That's the pooled investment entity investors subscribe to for the project. And then onward to the job creating entity. So the entity that actually is building or operating the project. That's the business that's deploying the capital and creates the required jobs, whether direct or indirect. So the project can use the money, right? Projects like this release on filing. So meaning as soon as you file your I-526E, which is your first immigration application for your EB-5, after you've made the investment. If you don't have proof that you've made the investment to the regional center, you can't file an I-526. If you do, it'll be refused. So you invest, you file the I-526 with your legal team or our legal team, right? Then as soon as the filing is done, a couple of months later, an acknowledgement comes in, right? And then the escrow releases the funds to the project, the NCE and the job creating entity, which we call JCE. I don't know why the Americans love abbreviations, NCE, JCE, my God. But why do projects like it? Developers often need capital early for practical reasons, including construction schedules, construction draws, interest carry on interest reserve management, other debt, reducing reliance on expensive bridge financing. So they may have short-term financing that they need to get out of. And in the real world, EB-5 processing can take a long time. So many offerings prefer early release from the escrow because waiting for approvals to fund a project is not really practical. So 99.99% won't do it. What's the investor downside from your point of view in such an arrangement? If your immigration petition is later denied due to your source of funds, your funds will be already deployed and spent in the project. At that point, your refund is no longer as simple as escrow sends the money back because it has been released already. Therefore, this goes back to our three core factors for successful EB-5 application, for which we've posted in another video last year, one of which being the source of funds. If the USCIS denies your initial immigration application, it's usually two things. You didn't do the proper investment into the regional center, or two, usually source of funds. Where did you get the money to invest the 800,000 plus regional center fees? If you don't have your source of funds in order, SOF, another abbreviation, don't even bother thinking of investment risk or even watching this video. So capital preservation, all that, forget all that. Okay? Any EB-5 refund depends on the offering's refund mechanism, which can include things like holdback reserve, replacement investors, repayment guarantee. So if you are stuck in that situation, which you shouldn't be, okay, because if you're in that situation, either you didn't do your homework, your agent sucks, your lawyer sucks. I'm sorry. Excuse my French there, but it's a reality. If you're doing EB-5, there should have been a pre-assessment on your source of funds to give you a green light. Then you invest, then you file. So 99% you're good. But if you get denied, somebody didn't do their homework. So the underwriting reality is release on filing, so releasing of your funds from the escrow for the project on filing of your I-526E petition increases project feasibility, but it also increases early investor exposure. It makes the quality of refund mechanics extremely important, especially if your source of funds is not in order and has not been properly put together by your legal representative and no pre-assessment has been done. Our clients, we do a pre-assessment. So we give them a clean bill of health before they invest. Before you put 800,000 in a regional center, somebody's got to look at your documents, sign you up. That's what we do. Okay. Obviously, release on approval is stronger, but it's very unlikely. So we're not going to cover it today. You got to be careful with that. It's very unlikely that a project will hold your money for a year and a half until it's released, until you have an approval. Okay. So you've got to be careful. Historically, EB-5 offerings often project multi-year holding periods, borrowing periods, commonly about 5 years or more, in part to account for immigration timings and realities of the I-829 petition by investor to remove conditions and permanent residency status. Unless the project is already under construction and you have a shorter timeline of the launch for the business to stabilize an exit strategy, you're looking at 5 years plus. So when you hear release on filing, quote unquote, versus release on approval, quote unquote, here's what you should be thinking. Release on filing, early deployment, earlier exposure, refund depends heavily on document quality, source of funds, and refund mechanics in your paperwork. Release on approval, more escrow protection early, but the project must bridge itself financially. I haven't seen many. Hybrid release is a mix between the two. The question is not which release model do they use. The question is, do the escrow agreements, offering documents, and capital structure create a realistic path for A, refunds on denial, capital return on exit without creating immigration compliance challenges? Because what you don't want to do is undermine your green card process. That's, in the first place, that's why you're investing. You're not investing to just give free money to these projects in the US. You're investing to get a green card for you, your family, or maybe your children, or maybe that's, the whole package. That's why you're watching this video, right? Because otherwise, if there's nothing good on Netflix, it must be pretty bad if you're watching this. I'm just kidding. That's the underwriting lens professional EB-5 analysts use, right? And it's exactly how we evaluate projects before we recommend to investors, and we look at your source of funds, okay? Remember, my guidelines in my other videos where I said there's 3 successful factors for a successful EB-5 application are still there. What we talked about today are 3 core foundations of capital preservation as an EB-5 capital investor. If you're searching for international investment hacks, creative residency, citizenship solutions to keep more money in your pocket than paying governments so politicians can blow it for you, Well, we provide key analysis and exposed truth about program policies and updates around the world. So you can subscribe to a YouTube channel because it's free, right? And you can unsubscribe for free. At Ingwe, we're dedicated to crafting solutions that meet your requirements. Clear upfront processes, payment milestones, peace of mind. We have a variety of programs to match your goals, wherever it is. Transparency, choice, security. With comprehensive insurance, client trust accounts, we protect your interests in our North American banking institutions. Plus, our multilingual team supports applicants from every continent around the world, and we have. Ready to take the next step? A 60-second intake form on our website or the link down below this video. If you don't have 60 seconds to give me your info to get on a call with me, I don't know if I can help you or not, okay? Or maybe you can get your assistant to reach out to me if you don't have 60 seconds. We'll be back here next Thursday. More content, more videos, more of the exposed truth. And of course, we've got Safa on our live stream today. Good news. We received IRCC's request yesterday for medicals and updated documents under the SUV application. Any indication on the next steps for information we did not hear from IRCC since April 2024. Safa, you must be one of the first groups that's seeing traction now for your application. So that is excellent news. Did they ask you for business progress updates, or was it more medical and personal details for the co-founders? Safa is talking about the startup visa program for the permanent residency into Canada. So Safa, that's excellent news. You know what? It's probably good news that our YouTube live got postponed from Thursday to Friday. By the way, we recorded this on Friday, folks, but we're here every Thursday, 11:30 a.m. North America Standard Eastern Time. So that's Standard Eastern Time. Ottawa, Montreal, Miami, New York, Toronto. But yeah, that's great news, Safa. And again, we're here next Thursday. We're talking about more about residencies, investments, global diversification. Because if you're only holding one passport, that's like having one car. That's like having one property. That's like having one phone in your family. That was great 100 years ago. But having one citizenship today, you are being exposed. Exposed to who? The governments. The same governments that maybe mean you should not be trusting. Nothing for work product, only update doc. Excellent, Safa. This is excellent news. Safa, you have my email. So why do you keep me updated? I would love to see what the processing time, because nobody knows what those next steps are, Safa. Nobody, because IRCC took a year off in 2025. They didn't do anything. And then now they're starting. So there could be an internal process change. We don't know. Safa, do keep us updated. This is the first group that I've heard of in 2026 that has restarted their process. And this is excellent news. Congratulations. And when you're here in Toronto, let's meet up for a nice tea or a decaffeinated coffee, because I'm already too caffeinated. Folks, we'll be back here next Thursday talking about EB-5. If you just missed this live session on the core foundations of EB-5 capital preservation, you can go back to our YouTube channel, go on live, press play, and put me in slow motion or skip a few parts and watch those core foundation tips, because most regional centers, and you know, a lot of EB-5 investors, they just approach regional centers happily. That's like going to a car dealership or a shoe store and talking to the salesperson, and they're like, they make everything sound so beautiful, so fluffy. Your money is not fluffy. You better protect it. We're not exclusive with any project, but we work with all of them, all the good ones at least. So we tell you everything up front. You like it, and we'll tell you all the bad news, the good news, the ugly side, the beautiful side. Then you make a decision, and we'll help you throughout the whole process. That's the difference of you working with us versus the regional centers directly. You're under priority processing, Safa. Yes, I know. Sure, I will make an interview with your SUV sacrifices. I mean, my God, this SUV thing, Safa, it's crazy. It's crazy. No, but let me know. I'm serious. You've got my email. Send me an update or come on our YouTube every Thursday. Today's Friday, I know. And we had that technical issue yesterday, and you commented on that. I appreciate that. But Safa has been following us for what? Over 2 years now. And I truly appreciate, Safa, your support, and all of our audience members, people in the background, people in the shadows who are not commenting. That's fine too. We love you all. But Safa, this is great news. This is great news. I'll share it with my team as well. Folks, come back. See us again. We've got a lot of videos that we're posting regular, and we got our live once a week. Okay? Remember, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. 20. The second best time to plant a tree was, well, it's today, right now. You think things are expensive now? Think about 20 years from now. Good luck. And remember, don't just apply for the sake of applying. Apply with a plan. Take care. Safa, good to see you. See you next week, folks. Bye-bye.